Test, test. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good, thank you, sir.
You good? I'm gonna holler. Hey, all right. Are they good?
Let me put my microphone on. Good morning and welcome. It's great to see such a great crowd. We've got really great events today. It's an interesting agenda, and I hope that I won't mess it up. After having Leighton go through it all with me, I was like, wow, this is going to be fun. So let me call the meeting to order. The Texas Government Code permits this Board of Trustees to meet in a closed executive session for the following reasons, among others: to consult with the college district's attorneys on matters deemed privileged by the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct or Government Code 551.071, to deliberate regarding real property under 551.072, a prospective gift under 551.073, certain personnel matters under 551.074, security devices or security audits under 551.076, and economic development negotiations under 551.087. If the board meets in closed session, we will announce this particular section, under which we will be doing so prior to initiating the closed portion of the meeting. I'd like to now invite our two guests that are going to give the invocation and the pledges. Mr. Jared Miller. Jared graduated from Brenham High School in 2022. Jared, so good to see you. His father and both paternal grandparents earned associate degrees from Blinn before earning their bachelor's degrees from Sam Houston State, while his mom graduated from Texas A&M. As an engineering academy student, Jared will transition to Texas A&M University in the fall and major in biological and agricultural engineering. After graduating from Texas A&M, he would like to work in agriculture, where he will focus on more efficient farming machinery, as well as improving the processing and storage of agricultural products. The pledge will be given by Ms. Haley Burke. Haley attended College Station High School. Her father graduated from Blinn College, while her mom is a former student of Texas A&M. Haley is also a student in the Engineering Academy and will transition to the main campus at Texas A&M in the fall. She hopes to pursue project management and electrical engineering. Thank you guys so much for being here.
If you'll please bow your heads and pray and join me in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us all to come together today. As we come here at the end of this academic year, we look back and find joy in all the accomplishments we have achieved and in all the moments we were able to see you. In celebration for this past year, we thank you for all the students, faculty, board members, and all who contributed to the work here at Blinn College. Lord, I ask that as the board gathers today, you grant them wisdom, guidance, support, and support as they reflect on this past year while looking ahead to promote a brighter future for Blinn. Grant them courage, boldness, discernment as they engage in discussion in an effort to grow closer as a community. As they look forward, I ask that you guide their minds and hearts throughout the following year so that in all they do, they will glorify your name. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you guys again for being here and helping us today. Okay, there is no one that signed up for public comment, so we will move on to item 4 on the agenda. First item of business is, ladies and gentlemen, this morning marks the final meeting for Trustee Douglas Bohart, who is retiring after 13 years of service.
Mr. Chairman, we'll go ahead and call up item 4A. If you'd like to do item 4A and 4B first, then we can get over to the resolutions for Trustee Bohart.
Great. Is that?
I will go ahead and handle 4A if you'd like to call that one up, Mr. Chairman. Trustees, as you know, we've just had our election. May 6th was the election. We're going to be swearing in some of our new trustees here shortly. But there's a couple of business items we have to do under the elections code first before we can do that. So we're going to go ahead and have those, a couple of different action items. We can do that and can continue with the meeting. So item 4A is the canvass of the precinct election returns from the May 6, 2023 general election. And this is for the Blinn College District Board of Trustees members who are representing precincts 2 and 3 to full 6-year terms. Under Chapter 67 of the Texas Elections Code, one of the items we have to do is read the results of the election at a board meeting, and then you as the canvassing board authority for that election will then approve those election results, and the chairman will sign that following the meeting after these election results. So based on that chapter of the Elections Code, I'm going to read the results of the election. The results for Trustee Precinct 2 position. This was a contested race. The Trustee 2 precinct candidates. The first was Andy Liner. Andy Liner received 577 votes in the race. The second Trustee Precinct 2 candidate was Diane Cruzy Kettler, receiving 3,105 votes, meaning the winner of the Precinct 2 position is Diane Cruzy Kettler. We also had Precinct 3 trustee position on the board ballot. That was an uncontested race. Allison Benke received 3,194 votes and is declared the winner of the Precinct 3 race. Mr. Chairman, those are the summary of the precinct results, and we do need a vote on from the board to approve and accept those results.
So I would be looking for a motion that the board canvass the precinct election results of May 6, 2023 general election for the Blinn College District Board of Trustees representing precincts 2 and 3 to serve full 6-year terms.
So moved.
Trustee Wells, Trustee Mosier, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll go ahead and call up item 4B, which is the issuance of the certificate of elections for the May 6, 2023 election. As we just read the precinct summary results, the next step in the process under Chapter 67 of the Elections Code is that you, the board, the canvassing authority, will issue a certificate of election to both of the winners. Those are contained in your packet, and following the meeting, the chairman will sign the certificate of elections for Diane Cruzy Kettler for Precinct 2 position and for Allison Benke for the Precinct 3 position. We do need a vote on this to authorize the chairman to issue the certificate of election based on the results of the May 6, 2023 election.
Okay. I would look that the board approve and issue the official certificates of election to the winning candidates from the May 6, 2023 general election for the Blinn College District Board of Trustee members representing precincts 2 and 3 to serve full 6-year terms.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Now, we will get on to what I was trying to get done earlier, and don't read anything into that, Douglas. I'm not trying to get you off the board or anything. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning marks the final meeting for Trustee Douglas Bohart, who is retiring after 13 years of service on the Blinn College District Board of Trustees. Next on the agenda is item number 5, the reading of the resolution. At this time, I'd like to invite Leighton Schubert, Executive Vice Chancellor, to read the resolution and plaque from the Blinn College District honoring Trustee Bohart's service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And trustees, bear with me here as we read the resolution. We had to print it on extra long paper. Trustee Bohart has such an accomplished career here in the Blinn Board. It's an honor to read this in your honor. So trustees, bear with me here. Whereas Douglas Bohart faithfully represented Precinct 2 as a member of the Blinn College District Board of Trustees between May 2010 and May 2023. And whereas Trustee Bohart attended Blinn College before earning his bachelor's degree in finance from Texas A&M University. And whereas Trustee Bohart served as the Executive Vice President and CFO at Brenham National Bank until his retirement. And whereas Trustee Bohart has served as a member of the Washington County Fairgrounds Management Board, a founding director of the Good Fellows of Washington County, a director of the Washington County Healthy Living Association, a founding director and former treasurer of the BISD Education Foundation, and a vice chairman of the Mission Endowment Fund of the Texas-Louisiana Gulf Coast, thought out of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. And whereas Trustee Bohart was elected to the Blinn College District Board of Trustees in 2010 and re-elected in 2017, and whereas Trustee Bohart served one term as board president from May 23 until May 2015, and whereas Trustee Bohart served 2 terms as the board secretary from August 2011 until May 2013, and from May 2015 until May 2017. And whereas during Trustee Bohart's tenure on the Board of Trustees, the Blinn College District has established itself as a statewide co-enrollment leader with the development of the Texas A&M Engineering at Blinn and the Texas A&M Engineering Academy at Blinn Brenham, the Clear Affordable Pathways to Success program with the University of Houston, and co-enrollment partnerships with the Texas A&M College of Agriculture and Life Sciences and BV Teach program with the Texas A&M College of Human and Educational Development, and also Southern New Hampshire University. And whereas, under Trustee Bohart's leadership, the Blinn College District has regularly ranked among the state and national community college leaders in academic transfer, including its current status as the community college with the highest academic transfer rate in the state of Texas. And whereas, under Trustee Bohart's leadership, the college strengthens its financial position. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Bohart authorized Blinn to accept the Texas A&M University System's invitation to join the RELIS Academic Alliance and to open a new Blinn College campus at Texas A&M RELIS. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Bohart authorized the modernization and development of the Brenham campus, including the construction of the Wheeler Hall, Doyle Coatney Center, the Cruzy Center, Mill Creek Hall, the Ann Gardner Livestock Annex, the Science, Technology, Innovation, and Engineering Building, and Prairie Lee Hall. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Bohart authorized renovations and upgrades to several Brenham campus facilities, including Leroy Dreyer Field, the Old Main Building, the W.L. Moody Jr. Library, Spencer Field Block, and the Student Center Dining Hall. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Bohart authorized the modernization and development of the Bryan campus, including the construction of the Bryan Campus Administration Building. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Bohart authorized upgrades to the Central Administration Services Building at the Tejas Center, the Bryan Campus Cast Stone Replacement Project, and the Campus Beautification Project that included landscaping and courtyard upgrades. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Bohart authorized the development of RELIS, including the construction of the Walter C. Swartz Building, the Agriculture and Workforce Education Complex, and the Blinn RELIS Administration Building. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Bohart approved a variety of new programs, including a new certificate in cybersecurity, and new Associates of Applied Science degrees in carpentry, cloud computing, drone technology, facility maintenance, HVAC, simulation and game programming, water purification, and web programming. And whereas, under Trustee Bohart's guidance, Blinn College launched new esports, men's and women's soccer, and men's and women's golf teams. And whereas Trustee Bohart leaves a legacy of selfless service to the Blinn College District, its students, and the communities it served. And therefore, be it resolved that the Blinn College District Board of Trustees expresses its sincere appreciation to Trustee Douglas Bohart and acknowledges his exemplary government acumen and supportive oversight between 2010 and 2023, adopted this May 16th of 2023 in Brenham, Texas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Executive Vice Chancellor Schubert. Let me just add my personal thanks, Douglas, for your service to this board. It has always been selfless service. You took your duties here very seriously, and your counsel to me personally, while I was on this board or while I've been on this board, has been invaluable. You can tell by all of the things that were accomplished while you've been on this board, what a tremendous impact that you had. Things weren't always easy in the early days. You shepherded this college through some very difficult and challenging times in the early years, and we cannot thank you enough. And I just thank you for your service and enjoy your time off. Anyone else that would like to say anything, you're welcome to.
I do. Thank you for allowing me to sit to your right, and you've definitely been a great mentor for me as I've made this transition in 2018. So we pray God blessings upon you in your retirement. Thank you.
Similarly, I have been working with you both as an employee and a person sitting next to you, and I appreciate the one thing Jim said, I think that resonates, is that you took this job very seriously, and you spent a lot of time and effort, and all of us really appreciate that, and thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I would add also that we never went into the board never went into a budget hearing or a budget meeting that I was always confident that Douglas was going to be ready to hold our team and the feet to the fire as to the facts and figures that they presented to us, and that and I had great confidence that the questions that he posed were always on target and needed to be answered. So I always kind of went to those meetings saying, "Okay, sick them, Douglas, sick them." But he served to me. He served a great service to us in providing that help to us. So we say thank you, Douglas, for that.
You go ahead and then I'll.
Thank you for all you've done. It is clear at every meeting that you are well prepared and that you take the students and the faculty as the forefront of your thoughts. And it is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
And I came on at a very strange time because we couldn't meet. I mean, we met, but it seems like we were way over here. I don't know, we were all 6 feet apart. And so there were times that we couldn't, like training, that kind of stuff took a while, but I remember you calling me one time and giving me guidance on some things I wasn't aware that I could possibly do, like abstain if I needed to, those kind of things. And like they all said, you were always prepared. And I'm so glad that we started going to the budget meetings, those that aren't on the committee, because you helped explain some things along with Dr. Cervantes that sometimes we would just be like, I was like, I'm going to look at it before I go, but I'll get the answers when I get there, because y'all explained it in layman's terms, and we appreciate that.
Mr. Bohart, would you like to introduce some of your special guests that you have here, and any comments that you might want to make?
Sure. First of all, I need to tell Leighton he left a few things out of the resolution. One of the things he did leave out of the resolution is the fact that I probably hold a record for voting no at more board meetings than any other trustee ever has. But in addition to that, you know, one of the things that I'm preceding my prepared remarks, but one of the things that probably stands out from my place is that the Blinn family, as I have called them in the past, has provided over 24,000 students with degrees and certificates since I came on this board. That is a lot of education, and it's a lot of love that was demonstrated by the entire Blinn family. So, with that, I'm going into my prepared remarks. So, you know, I think this is going to be a little more emotional than I thought. First, I would like to thank my wife, Sandra, for her support, patience, and tolerance of me, not just during my years of service on the Blinn board, but also for all the other things that I have been involved with during our 46+ years of marriage. Secondly, I would like to thank the citizens of Washington County for electing me to serve as a trustee of Blinn College and entrusting me with overseeing, protecting, and advancing one of this county's most valuable entities. Thirdly, I would like to thank my fellow board members, both past and present, who offered their support, tolerance, patience, and many times some impatience with me during my board service. Now I would like to speak a little bit to the Blinn College administration, faculty, staff, and students for all they have done to make Blinn College what it is today. When I announced in November of last year that I would not be seeking re-election to the Board of Trustees of Blinn College, I made a statement that I believed that Blinn College was a good place. Today, as I leave my seat on the Board of Trustees, I want to amend that statement. That I said that I believe Blinn College is in a good place. So let me explain. It was a little over a year ago that I was introduced to a couple of parents from Atascocita whose daughters had received offers to join the Blinn College women's soccer program. These parents were excited about the offers that their daughters had received, but presented me with many questions about Blinn College. I answered all of the questions to the best of my ability, and I pretty much promised them that their daughters would enjoy Blinn College. Last Tuesday, I received an email from one of those parents that I would like to share with you that has changed my belief that Blinn is in a good place. I'm changing that belief to one that is confirming that Blinn College is a good place. This is the email I received. It's actually parts of 2 emails I received. Good afternoon. We just moved Sophia out of her dorm room today. We are driving home, and she is sharing with me what a fabulous year she had at Blinn. And part of this email, I was supposed to, after every sentence, were a series of exclamation points. So you could tell the parent was happy. One thing that made it great were the professors. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. She has the best professors this year. They really cared about her, went above and beyond in every way. She gave me a for example. This semester, she was taking an animal science class, and when she asked her professor about a class she was considering taking next semester, he actually walked her over to the professor of that class and introduced her to him. The email goes on, we are so grateful for the opportunity she had to go to Blinn Brenham this year and are looking forward to another great year next year. I just wanted to let you know what an awesome school Blinn is. It's a very special place. And it's been so fun for us to watch Sophia flourish and thrive there. She has really loved the soccer team also and had a great year playing soccer. She loves Coach Jackson. So please pass this on, whoever would love to hear it. So with that, I offer my final and best and biggest thanks to you, the administration, faculty, staff, and students for having done your part in confirming that Blinn College is a good place. I close by saying that it has been an honor and privilege to be a part of the Blinn College family. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bohart. At this time, I'd like to invite Chancellor Hensley and Trustee Bohart to join me at the front of the dais so we may officially present you with the commemorative plaque from the Blinn College District.
And 1, 2, 3. And just one more time. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you. And 1, 2, 3. And just one more time. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Do we need? I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
Second. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to another exciting portion of the meeting, swearing in of trustees. We now move on to agenda item 7, the swearing in of newly elected board members representing precincts 2 and 3 to serve full 6-year terms. At this time, I would like to call upon City of Brenham Mayor Milton Tate to administer the oaths of office to these precinct positions.
Diane, I will administer the oath to you. It's my honor and privilege, pursuant to the Texas Constitution, Article 16, Section 1A, to administer the oath of office for service on the Board of Trustees of the Blinn College District. Diane Cruzy Kettler, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Diane Cruzy Kettler,
I, Diane Cruzy Kettler,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of the Blinn College District Trustee
of the office of the Blinn College District Trustee
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
And I'll count to three, and 1, 2, 3. And just one more time. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Benke, you need to come up and get sworn in as well.
It's my honor and privilege, pursuant to the Texas Constitution, Article 16, Section 1A, to administer the oath of office for service on the Board of Trustees of the Blinn College District. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Allison Benke,
I, Allison Benke,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of the Blinn College District Trustee
of the office of the Blinn College District Trustee
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
And I'll count to three, and 1, 2, 3. And just one more time. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Congratulations to trustees Kettler and Benke. Blinn College District is grateful for your service to the Board of Trustees. Okay, we will now move on to item 8 in the agenda, the election of board officers for 2-year terms for the period of May the 23rd, 2023 through May 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we elect the following: as Chairman, Jim Colcourse; as Vice Chairman, Allison Benke; and as Secretary, Randy Wells.
There's been a motion on the floor.
I second that motion.
Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Congratulations to the new board officers, and again, congratulations to the new trustees. In celebration, we will begin a 20-minute break. I invite Trustee Bohart, Trustee Kettler, and Trustee Benke to remain in the boardroom with their special guests for photos. Everyone else, please enjoy snacks and refreshments in the foyer. Thank you. After the break, we will begin the rest of the board meeting. It's 10:35 right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Randy's out socializing. Hey, Mr. Secretary, this office thing. Look, thank you for keeping my seat warm.
Okay. Hope everyone enjoyed that great Blinn food service food that they had out there. It was great. I know some of our esports guys are enjoying the cupcakes out there. I saw that. It's 10:57. We're going to go ahead and continue with the meeting. We will go to item number 10, Chancellor's Administrative Report. Dr. Hensley.
Thank you, Chair Colcorson. Good morning, everyone. Let's start off with our facilities report. Trustees, we continue to navigate supply chain issues on each of our projects, and we're working with the construction managers at risk to minimize delays. Collier Construction has mobilized for construction on the Parking Lot K project located in front of the Doyle Coatney Center on College Avenue at the site of the former Solons Hall. As I mentioned in last month's report, lead times for electrical components are lengthy, and we could be delayed into late summer or even into the early fall, which would impact our ability to provide site lighting as well as power to the new food truck. So we are looking at alternative electrical components that we might be able to bring in to reduce the anticipated delay. Regarding the apartments, construction also began this week on the replacement of roofs and gutters on buildings 1, 2, and 3 of the Blinn College Park apartments on the Brenham campus. This project is scheduled for completion this July. Regarding Old Main, we are beginning to work to replace the roof tiles and to repair the facade on the Old Main building. The contractor is processing submittal information and performing testing required by the Texas Historical Commission. Samples of the historic roof tile have been sent to the roof tile manufacturer to create replacement tiles, and we anticipate that those tiles will arrive in October with the work scheduled for completion by next January. That would be January of 2024. Now over to the Bryan Administration Building. At the Bryan Campus Administration Building, we continue to work with the City of Bryan to obtain the site plan approval and to submit a building permit set. The construction manager at risk has provided an updated estimate that is being reviewed by our design team. We anticipate presenting the board with a guaranteed maximum price for your consideration at the June board meeting. Now on to some wonderful news. Last month, trustees, the National Institute for Staff and Organizational Development, commonly referred to as NISOD, and Diverse Issues in Higher Education magazine, named Blinn a 2023 Most Promising Places to Work in Community Colleges award winner. This is a national award. This award recognizes community and technical colleges with an exceptional commitment to family friendliness, salary and benefits, and professional development opportunities. Blinn previously won this award in 2017, 2020, and in 2022. So we're so proud of this. And I've asked Dr. Marcelo Busicki to represent Blinn to accept the award on behalf of Blinn at NASA's International Conference on Teaching and Leadership Excellence that occurs later this month. So thank you, Dr. Busicki, for doing that. Now to esports. You all have waited patiently, and we thank you so very much. But this is really special. Trustees, Blinn's esports program has had amazing and significant success this spring. In April, our Valorant, Overwatch, and Super Smash Brothers teams each received the national finals in their respective games. The Valorant team defeated Northern Virginia Community College to win the NJCAA Esports Championship, the first national title in the history of this program. And so I've asked and invited Max Hibbs, Dean of Engineering, Computer Technology, and Innovation, to introduce the coaching staff again and members of the team who have joined us today. We are so proud of you. Thank you and welcome, Dean Hibbs.
Thank you, Dr. Hensley and Board of Trustees. It is my pleasure to remind us that this just started 3 years ago. And we've had very good results in all 3 years. This year was extraordinary, more than we could have anticipated. And so I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Capico, who is the manager and head coach, and he can tell you a lot more than I can. So thank you.
Thank you, Dean Hibbs. Thank you, members of the board, for having us. Yeah, as Dean Hibbs said, this has been a truly extraordinary season for us. We won the 2-year NJCAA National Championship a few weeks ago, which was one of the first goals when we started this program 3 years ago, was we want to be 2-year national champions. But now this team has gone even above and beyond that. We also compete in the overall national championship, which that is all schools 2- and 4-year within the United States and Canada compete in this tournament. And we have a chance this weekend, actually, after taking down the number 2 team in the country last weekend, we have a chance this weekend to continue our national tournament run and be the overall Valorant national champions on top of already winning the NJCAA. On top of that, on top of this championship and our first national championship, we've had a ton of success, as Max mentioned, as a program this year. We had 5 teams qualify for the NJCAA playoffs. 3 of those teams, as mentioned, made the national finals, and 1 team winning the national championship, our first ever in Valorant, is a huge accomplishment. And I know that I couldn't do that without the support of all of you, the support of Dean Hibbs, so many other people behind the scenes, as well as my assistant coaches, Kyle Murto and Ryan Lusich, as well as the most important people. And the reason we do all this stuff is the players. Just taking a moment to recognize them: Bruce Nguyen, Hayden Whitaker, Adam Lamouille, Teague Morgan, and unfortunately, Austin Ray could not be here today due to sickness, but we'd like to recognize all of them right now, as well as the hard work they're doing. We've come a long way from starting this program 3 years ago, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported us, and hopefully we can continue to represent Blinn well and be a good light and continue to be a nationally recognized program as one of the best in the country. Thank you all.
And congratulations. And I can't close my remarks this morning without mentioning baseball. So we are in the Super Regional Championship, hoping since last Saturday that we would have the home field advantage here in Brenham. But the rain sometimes doesn't go the way we want. And so we are relocating starting tomorrow at Panola College in Carthage. A number of us will be attending. I encourage you to bring your good spirit and your loud voices and hard claps and cheers and bells to the Carthage Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesday at 6 p.m., Thursday at 1 p.m., And then Friday, if needed, at 1 p.m. The best 2 out of 3, we're playing Paris Junior College. And the winner will go to the World Series Championship for baseball in Grand Junction. So if you can't come, then go with us in your hearts and in your souls and cheer for us quietly. And we keep our fingers crossed that we will bring on our way in another week to Grand Junction. And with that, Chair Colcourse, thank you so very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share all these wonderful students, faculty, staff, and good news with our trustees.
Thank you, Dr. Hensley, and great job, guys. Tremendous job getting that program going. Really appreciate it. I didn't even know what esports was 2 years ago, so now we do. Now we'll move on to item B, presentation of financial statement package for the period ended April 30th, 2023. Mr. Cervantes, Dr. Cervantes today.
Can I ask a question right quick before he gets, Dr. Hensley, on the old main over there, I remember when we got into replacing windows here a couple of years ago, and it kind of just kept getting kind of, and I've been around old buildings long enough to know that happens, but do we have a figure or where we're all?
Richard, do you mind coming up? He's inquiring about the tile replacement at Old Main. What does that timeline look like to you?
Timeline on the roofing project?
Yes, sir.
And the cost, you haven't.
The cost is, I think, right at $100,000, Mark, is that correct, I think? Okay, the whole project cost $200,000 for the roofing project, and the timeline is sometime this summer, the roof will be completed.
Yeah. Well, I remember the windows started out at one figure, and it kind of, every time we went back to the manufacturers, it just kind of kept going up, I believe, didn't it, on replacing those windows over there a couple of years
I'd have to
ago?
go back and check, Mr.
I was just
Mosier.
wondering if we're going to have that same sort of environment.
I don't anticipate, we've had several renovation projects to Old Main over the last 3 to 4 years. Started out with the windows, and then, of course, we had the flood that we had to do some major interior work, and now we're working on the roof. So we've managed most of the pricing and schedule escalations, I think, pretty well, but we can go back and check to confirm any of that.
Thank you.
And just real quick, and we have occupied Old Main, right? Is it occupied right now?
Yes, it is.
Yes, we've been in it. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. Congratulations to Trustee Kettler and also to Trustee Bentley. Looking forward to working with you for a short period of time anyway. So this report is through April 30th, 8th month of the fiscal year. We're 2/3 of the way through, 67%. Our revenue this year is at almost $93 million, and our expense is a little bit over $81 million, leaves us a net of $11.3 million. When we compare the revenue to last year, it is down $7.3 million, but a big portion of that is 2022 has some of the HERF money in it, $13.2 million. So that would take it down considerably if we didn't have the benefit of the federal money last year. The total expenditures are up $81 million this year and $77.7 last year, $3.8 million difference. So our net change in fund balance in 23 is 11.3 compared to $22.4 million last year, $11.1 million difference. But again, because of the $13.3 million makes a difference in it. Our revenue comparison by source, not really very many changes here. Tuition and fees are up, auxiliaries are up. Interest continues to bring back on a monthly basis well over $300,000 worth of interest. So we're way above our budget there. Compare tuition and fees revenue compared to budgeted. We budgeted $73.5 million. We're at 57.3, almost 78% of the way of our budget. Tuition revenue is up $1.4 million, 5%. Out of district, again, is the largest portion of that. And then out of state continues to perform well also. Our fee revenue is also up $1.9 million, 8%. The vast majority of that is in the general fee, but both the lab course, technology, as well as the workforce fee are also up compared to last year. Our housing and food service revenue, actual versus budgeted, we budgeted $10.8 million. Our actual through April is 7.5, almost 70% of the way through. Those are the two largest auxiliaries, but not all of them. So you see our food service is up considerably. The total auxiliaries across the board is up 10%. Bookstore is up. Housing is still a little bit down. Dr. Krausen, you mentioned last meeting, and I promised that I would get back with you. You said, well, the revenue continues to be down in housing, and why is it that housing expenses, I think this was your question, are up? So your revenue's down, your expenses are up. A big portion of that is we did have a cost of bringing in Prairie Lee, very similar to what we did at Mill Creek at the very beginning. We fund the insurance for both of those until they can get back on their feet. As it turns out, in some time, for Mill Creek, we were able to get paid back that first year. So I don't know if we're going to be able to achieve that for Prairie Lee because of the low enrollment, but that is the explanation for it. Our total expenses are up 3.7. That's the delta compared to last year. The majority of that is coming from our salaries and benefits, $3.2 million, but then we do have increases in E&G, $1.6 million. The payroll expense compared to 2023 is at 60%. That is high, certainly compared to last year, but remember we had the HERF money that raises the revenue up that causes that percentage to be lower. 2020 is probably your best representation compared to this year. And then our debt service that we track all the time, at this point, it too is high, 9.43%. We do believe, Mr. Moser, by the end of this fiscal year, that number will come down. It won't come to, it'll probably hover a little bit over 7% would be my guess, but it might go below that. There is some good news out there though, and I'll point it out in the budget when we get to that our expectation is for next fiscal year that number actually should drop down below 6% if we achieve all the revenue that we believe that we will get. Expense comparison by category, up $3.8 million. Salary and benefits, I think R&R, because we did not have any expenses in that area, budgeted that out of our reserves, throws that off a little bit. Our operating expense comparison by functions up $4.8 million, 7%. As I said earlier, the salaries is the biggest portion of that. It permeates through all of these different areas, and that's the biggest explanation for the difference. So our student cash and refunds in April is up to $2.1 million. We issued student refunds at almost $410,000, but we did receive payments, $2.7 million, and then we returned to the Department of Education a refund of $181,000, a little bit over that. We also received other cash receipts in April, a little bit over $3 million. I mentioned the interest at the top continues to perform very well on a monthly basis, $362,000. Didn't have any insurance proceeds this month. Our state appropriations at 2.6, and then miscellaneous almost $61,000. Our use of cash in April's a little bit higher than usual, $11.5 million. We did have to make a payment in April to debt service, $1.8 million. We also had some construction accounts payable. The payroll is a little bit higher than normal. It usually is lower than $6 million, but our explanation is as we have some of these later programs in the spring, that there's some part-time adjunct faculty that we have to pay, and so it adds on to the cost. So our decrease in unrestricted cash and cash equivalents, the summary is that we have $2.1 million coming from students. We received another $3 million from other sources, but we did use a higher number than we normally have, $11.5 million of cash. That left us a net decrease to cash in April of $6.4 million. We decreased the money that was in the investment pools, and the money that we had kept in the bank, we took it from there to cover those that amount. Our unrestricted cash and cash equivalents has dropped $118 million. We still have the $60 million on the left, the unrestricted reserve, and we still have the funding for current projects, the $39.1 million. That does include the facility that we will be constructing on the Bryan campus, the administration building, which leaves us almost $20 million available for new projects. Stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question, Mr. Swan. You mentioned that, I guess, for the month that the salaries or whatever all that goes into that was like 60% of the cost of,
yes, sir.
Of the expenses. What is there a, and I know that's just 1 month, it's less than that for a year. What is there a general parameter that you look for in terms of how you want that to be a part of your total expenses?
Thank you, Mr. Moser. That number is actually pretty close to where you have been before. If you look back in history, as we end the year, this is April, but we've looked at it all the way through the fiscal year. The number has been less than 60%. So you're right there. I mean, I've seen it where it's maybe mid 55% or something like that. I don't see this as being extraordinary. I do think also that Blinn is fortunate enough to receive the sort of revenue that we believe that we will gain next year, that ratio will come down.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to item C, the presentation of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2023-24. And Mr. Cervantes, I think you're going to take that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. This is a continuation of the discussion that we had last month, where we had proposed a number of different options, and the board asked us to go back and revisit that and look at possibly adding another option, and we have actually added 2 more. Our expectation is that as we leave this meeting today, that we're able to focus in on one of the options so that we can prepare the budget so that the board can look at that in June. So that is part of what we would need to accomplish today. So as we go through these, please feel free to ask the questions, particularly the options, to make sure that you have a great understanding of what it is that we're proposing, and be happy to answer any of those questions. So this is also an update, just as a reminder, particularly Ms. Kettler, that we adopted the tuition and fee rates in March, the board did, but this is a larger revenue picture. This is the entire budget, so that's the distinction there. We also had received an update back in April. We presented this to the board at that April meeting. It has not changed. Now, this is the model, the current model that the state of Texas uses to fund community colleges. House Bill 8 is a different model. And Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to ask Mr. Schubert if he would come up and give any updates on House Bill 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow board members. So House Bill 8, I mentioned at the budget meeting, last budget meeting, House Bill 8's kind of been hung up a little bit on some greater political gamesmanship that's going on in the session. That is still occurring. House Bill 8 was referred to the Senate subcommittee on higher education, which is the subcommittee of the overall Senate Education Committee, that committee has voted out House Bill 8. However, the full Education Committee has not taken that up. And here's why. There are some amendments being drafted to tack a couple of other bills onto House Bill 8. These are not bills that were originally part of House Bill 8. They are separate bills that have been going through the process, that there's been some agreement amongst the authors to add those into House Bill 8. It's not going to affect the core functions of House Bill 8, but there's several different items that are going to be tried to tag in there. The Education Committee has not heard it because those amendments have not been fully drafted and vetted. So that's what's kind of holding this up. I think once that occurs, it will go through the process and it will pass. We're keeping our eyes very closely on that, but they have not released the amended version of House Bill 8 yet, and that's what we're waiting on. But once again, those items that are being added will not affect the core functions of House Bill 8 as we've described it. There's several of the bills that are just tacking on to take a ride on that bill since it will be passing. Happy to answer any other questions, but there was only 14 or 15 more days, so it's going to get very fast here in the last little bit.
But your impression of House Bill 8 as it has passed at this point is that it would be positive for Blinn College?
Yes, it will be positive for Blinn College. We don't have any final numbers, but that is what we're looking at. One of the unfortunate things that's happened here is these other bills were not going to pass. There was running out of time, so they're using HB 8 as a piggyback, if you will, and that's what's slowing up the process. It's not the core function of HB 8 that's slowing it down, it's these other things they're tacking on.
But you think it'll still go through?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Which is why they're putting these other bills on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schubert. And the good news for us is that the information that I'm going to present to you, we still are in a position using the latest update that we received from the coordinating board to use those numbers and be able to accomplish the objectives that we need for this budget, primarily the salaries. We are having to move some numbers around, particularly in R&R. You'll see that in a second, to be able to accomplish it. And our hope is that we are successful in being able to bring in additional revenue in, that we may be able to bring the R&R budget back into the operations and not out of reserves. So this is the same information that we had reported to you last time, the 1% and the cost of that, including benefits, $554,000, and the longevity. We still are optimistic, highly optimistic that the health insurance rate will go away, but we don't know that for a fact. We know that's out there, it's been proposed, and we won't know that until next month, hopefully before you vote. And our expectation is that we'll be able to remove that as an expense. These are the same salary options that we showed you last month. The estimated increase for the 1%, the median salary increase, 57, though for those employees that are less than 57,100, they would get the 5%, and for those that are above that would get the 4%. That would cost $2.4 million. The single salary across the board, 5% increase would cost $2.8 million. The reserve one-time payment at one juncture, as we looked at the inflation rate, and it was hovering somewhere 7 or 8%, we knew that the numbers that we were proposing to you to the 4 and the 5% would not get us up to the 7 or 8. So we were proposing a one-time payment, and that would add back pretty close to where you would get to the inflation. Now that inflation has come down, and we will show you a slide in a little bit of how much it has come down. Right now it's at 4.9%. It was at 5% last month. Our expectation is that it will continue to decline. So the numbers we have here, we believe will work fairly well. And then we still are proposing the base faculty increase from $45,000 to $52,000, and that would cost the Blinn $333,000, which includes the benefits. So this is the core of what we have brought back to the board based on their desire to have an additional mid-salary range. or have three different ranges. So we had a number of objectives, and that was our first one as we looked at it, to come back and say, okay, let's offer something in here that is different than the first four, which are the ones that we showed you last month, and it's to these last two. So we have created a middle range. We also had another objective, and the objective was to try to get more employees in on the lower range. We had 50% with the median, and as these other two options, you can see they continue to grow the number of people that are in the low salary range. So these are the two options that we have added, and we have also added an additional percentage. So 6% at the lowest range, 5% in the middle, and then 4% at the highest salary. Also will note that the increase in cost continues to go up as we added these different options. So the mean average is essentially, it's not an angry average, it's a mean average. Sorry, that's my joke. You take the total salaries, divide that by the total number of employees, and the number doesn't exactly come out to $60,000, but it's pretty close, 59.3. So we just bumped it up to $60,000. And so that was the lowest range. Anybody below that, which would amount to about 60% of our employees, would be at that level. And then we just doubled that number to 120,000 was the top range for the middle, and then ended up going over to the last. Now so that is the explanation. So the cost of that would be $2.9 million. The last salary option is what we deem the least salary compression. It was a little bit harder to come up with, but we basically thought from the discussion that we had with the board that there was a desire there to have people at the highest level salary-wise receive the lowest percentage. The problem is it's difficult to just arbitrarily choose a number. So we were able to look at the number of people that would fall in that category, and we came to the conclusion that 170,000 would probably be our best number. So working it backwards, so 1%. We still were trying to get as many people in the lowest threshold, the lowest range, and this one does. It has 92% at the $90,000 number. So the middle number, middle range, somewhere between $90,000 and $170,000. There are about 7% of our employees. So only 8% of our employees fall above the $90,000 number. So that is part of the challenge that we had, is the bulk of our employees are on the left of that they're making less. And so Mr. Chairman, I could do this a number of different ways. We could have a discussion about this now, and you can give us some insight or some input into which one of these options you would like to explore, or I can wait to the end where I will show the summation of the three that the administration has zeroed in on, and then we could discuss it at that juncture.
You guys, any thoughts? You want to discuss this portion of it now, or hear the rest of his presentation and talk about it at the end? Let's do it at the end.
So this is the inflation that I was talking about. It's going down. So this is the salaries that we have been offering and the average. And this one is, you can see the inflation number. It actually started out at about 8%, a little bit over 8% in September, and has continued to go down. It's almost half of that now at 4.9. The expectation is, if you trust the federal government and some of the economists that are out there, that the number is going to end up being somewhere between 4 and 5% next year. So I think our salary proposals for our employees is in line with that. The historical pay increase shows that we have treated faculty, staff essentially from a percentage wise essentially the same. And I think that's a good philosophy. This one also shows some strategies here too. We started out in 17, comparing to the Texas Community College Teachers Association survey where Blinn lands. We were at 27 in 17. we've made our way down to 22. Our expectation as we, if the board approves approves the budget where we're moving from 45,000 to 52,000, and then the percentages that we're offering, we think it is very possible that we will come down. We did discover, as we looked at the part-time salary, that we actually were moving in a direction we did not like. So we have proposed an increase in there of another $25 that would add another $100,000 to the budget. Our expectation is that we may come down a little bit, probably not much with that. As I said to the board at the last meeting, looking at this slide, this is all full-time faculty, and you can see Blinn's increase has gone to, compared to the state average, has been pretty steadily moving up. There are a host of other schools, particularly the ones that are close to us, whether it's Houston or San Jacinto or Lone Star, that we're very close to that 63,000. So even though we may be 21 or 22, the difference between us is very small. And then those schools have an advantage that Blinn does not have, and that is the tax revenue that they are able to resource. And then on the part-time faculty, you can see that we also have moved up from 17, 23, 25, but we think as we move up, go a little bit higher, that we might be able to perform. It takes us in the right direction. Depends, of course, on what the other schools are doing there too. So what we're going to show you here is the budget impact, and the first models that we are on this slide show the one-time payment, the 1% increase, and then the 5 at the lowest level and 4 at the highest level salary increase on the median average. I want to focus in on 3 different areas, and I may go into a 4th one that's not highlighted here. You can see the one-time payment because we plan on taking that money out of reserves if we did do that, so it would not affect the budget at all. And so that's why there's nothing. And then the 1%, we talked about the 554,000, and then it's just multiples of that, but at a different level at the median. This one would only cost $2.4 million compared to some of the other options that we have. I don't know a better way of saying it, but you're going to see the replacement and renovations on each one of these. As the salary goes up, the R&R will go down because that's our plug. That's the amount. We just plan on using one item or one area to continue to move down as opposed to shifting everything else. In particular, the one that we had the advantage of doing is the increase in interest. We have $500,000 that we budgeted this year. We're already at $2.2 million. We'll easily go over $3 million for the end of the fiscal year. The increase in interest on a $500,000 will take us to $2.3 million as a budget. So I believe that is easily achievable. It is one of the areas the board can look at a later date to see whether or not we have an increasing dependence on this increase in interest. So we may not want to do that because it may not always be there. Interest rates go down and then you do not have the reserves that you had in the past. And then we have budgeted in the increase in scholarships, the $459,000 at every level. And that was what we had spoke about last month. So the next models show the 5% across the board increase, the 6.5 for the mean average, and then the least salary compression, also the 6.54. So you can see that the dollar amounts associated with each one of those continues to grow, $2.8 million to $2.9 million, and then the highest one is at $3.2 million. So when comparing this to the model, the 5.4 model, the median, the number is about $500,000 more here and about $750,000 more a year here. So they are more expensive. The R&R continues to go down. as the dollars, but we still have a budget in there for replacement and renovations. I'll show you that in a second, that we're not removing a budget for an R&R, we're just shifting it over to the reserves.
Mr. Cervantes, just a quick question. On the R&R, what have we historically used out of that on an annual basis? That 3 million plug number, how much are we actually using each year?
We began using more of it. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but at one time, we did find ourselves in a position, and it may be because we had accelerated all these capital projects, that we didn't have as much time. We had some turnover. There's a whole bunch of explanations of why we might have not been doing that. But we've had a more concerted effort, at least in the last 3 years, to try to get that higher. And they continue to ask more than what we have available, which is not a bad thing. But the good thing is we're pretty much accomplishing all of their requests. So we still are able to get, and there may be, as you'll see in a second, there still is going to be a little bit left over. Does that answer your question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I was just curious if we had it as a plug number but didn't use it, historically, then that money is kind of available.
It has changed. It is one of the, if you go back historically, 17, 18, fiscal year 17 and 18, maybe 19, I'm not sure about, that we would budget that amount, but then, as you said, we wouldn't use it and it would flow down to the bottom line. That has not been the case in the last few years. So it's not flowing down to the bottom line, or very little of it is.
Quick, so the 1,500 one time to each person, is that coming out of that budget item?
It's coming out of reserves. So that is coming out of reserves, and there's different reserves out there. One of them is the capital and deferred maintenance, which is where the R&R will be taken out. We have $15 million there. The amount that would come out of the $1,500 payment would be, I think I showed the amount of money that still was available, that it would end up coming out of that reserve, or that amount. It's not a reserve. So, Mr. Chairman, what we are showing you here is the actual revenue that we received in fiscal year 22 for the whole year, and then what we budgeted in the current year that we're at right now, and then what we are proposing. And you have some anomalies in here again, and because of the HERF money. The $18.3 million includes almost $17 million of HERF money. So if you took off the 17 from the 130, you'd be lower than either one of these. So I think we've been ambitious trying to move our budget up as much as we could to get out of this where we weren't bringing in as much revenue, or it was being subsidized with federal dollars. And so because we are not changing the interest level, that these are going to be what we propose. We're going to be moving, I don't know if that makes any sense, but because R&R is the plug, that is the amount that will change. It will not be the revenue. So this is just showing us that we have $376,000 from housing that we increased that we would be budgeting, and that's on each of the impacts, as well as the amount from the mill plan, $233,000. That's the total amount increase that we would be budgeting. So here's the R&R for the Brian Rellis campus. The total of those is $930,000. Some of those are generic. Some of those are very specific, like building H and C. And so depending, and you'll see in a second, depending on which option we choose, all of this will be funded, budgeted. It's just whether or not where it's coming from. Is it going to come out of our operations, or is it going to come out of our reserves? And these are the projects that are just 2 pages on the Brenham campus that we would be budgeting. It also has some very generic items, but then some specific, the band fill lighting, the flooring, and at BCPA, but for the most part, they're general. And then a couple more of them adding up to 2.5, almost $2.4 million. And then we've done something we haven't done before. These are the projects, Mr. Chairman, that we were not able to complete that were budgeted in the current fiscal year. So it's only $110,000 is what we have that we're rebudgeting into fiscal year 24. So the total of all of those repairs would be $3.5 million. And the question is, which portion, how much of that we will put in the operational budget, or how much we will take from our capital reserves? It depends on the salary options that the board chooses just to move into. So here's the summary, Mr. Chairman. We see it as three different sort of options. One is the 5% across the board. The range for that is everybody. And the other one is the median average, and the range. There's two ranges for that one. Those that are below the median and those that are above. And then the last salary option was the one that certainly would provide the most money into the hands of those at the lower level, but also would be the most expensive. And of these three, we think this one kind of fits some of the discussion of what we had last month, and what the board was asking us to do to try to get more of the money into the hands of those people at the lower level and not as much as those people at the higher level. The median average is still something that only has two ranges in it, and it's obviously something that the administration would support also. So, any thoughts?
Thanks for putting that together. I know that's, what we discussed at our last meeting to have an opportunity to look at that third option, that 654 option. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments about it?
I'd like, yeah, I do. I've thought about it, and I'm just kind of expressing I guess my thoughts about it, and I don't have really firm. I just wondered. I guess my question would be or thoughts, concern would be, if we get into this 3 levels on a regular basis, I don't know how hard that would be, or how confusing, or how, and I don't want to use the word fairness about it, but I mean, how that's applied, and you're going to always have people on the bubble, and we're kind of creating more splits in there that to me, it might be, I guess I'm not sure how that is. I'd like to maybe see if the administration would have any thoughts about that, or if there'd be any, has anybody had any history with this that elsewhere or somewhere that we could?
So, Mr. Moser, your instincts, I think, are appropriate and accurate. That as you look at this last column and that has the three different options, it becomes a little bit more, probably a lot more subjective. It's not impossible to administer, but it's more difficult to administer. And if the board moves in this direction again, somewhere down the line, you will see some differences. You'll see some of these salaries that move either higher or lower than that, than the 170,000 that we have there, depending on where people are fall. So there's more volatility there. Now, the median also would move, but it's more objective because it's fairly easy to go. You have 50% of the people that are at the lower level and 50%. So at least you have something that you can fall back on. And of course, the 5% across the board, everybody's getting the same amount. So.
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Cervantes, and thank you, Mr. Mosier. I'd like to ask Marie Kirby, who has looked at this quite thoroughly with Mr. Cervantes, if she could speak to these 3 options that we're looking at.
Thank you, Dr. Hensley, Chair Colcourse, and the trustees. HR has worked in conjunction with Mr. Cervantes and his team to kind of create those three options. And obviously, when you treat everybody the same, you don't really have salary compression. The 5-4 creates probably the least, and it does have what I would consider to be you can kind of justify where you are when you use that median. When you look at the 6-5-4, it tends to be more random, if you will. We looked at salaries and then chose not from a median, not from a mean, not from anything mathematical, but just tried to look at a breakdown of what those salaries look like. So I do concur with what Mr. Cervantes stated, that the last option obviously is a little bit more subjective because it has a certain amount of randomness involved in it rather than using a median or a mean average. And as always in HR, we're always looking at fairness, but we're also looking at salary compression, because anytime you take and start dividing, the more you divide, it does create salary compression. And so we have to add in for that, those adjustments. We always adjust up, looking at, where those cutoffs are, that we will have a certain amount that we have to add in terms of salary compression.
Thank you. Mr. Mosier, you make a good point. I think that the intent, when we talked about getting this added, was just trying to figure out how to, help those at the lower end a little bit more. But it does create some potential issues going forward in the future. I can certainly see that.
I would think that'd be my concern, Jim. Although I do think that we need to be as aggressive as we can in this year. Although inflation seems to be falling, I think we still need to try to help catch people up as best we can. I'd almost think maybe we'd do a 6 and a 5, or a 2 or something like that. I don't know. I'm kind of throwing this out and seeing if any of it.
Isn't 6-5 what it was last year?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, it was.
Because that's where I was wondering about the 4-5, which is what we had on the original before we came up with this 6-5-4. I guess the thing is everyone's a little leery about is we don't know, like with the House Bill 8, it sounds like it won't be done before we have to make this decision. And just not real sure with housing, with tuition and fees, where those are headed. And that's what makes it very difficult.
I think, Trustee Ayler, that is always a concern, because the crystal ball and who's reading the future of what's going to happen. The good news for Blinn, and Mr. Bohart said we're in a good financial position right now. He's left the board in that sort of situation for Blinn. You have a safety net that other institutions do not have the luxury of. You have at this juncture at least close to $20 million that's not even allocated to any of that. And the difference that you might have to make or take out of that would be immaterial compared to that total amount. And I am highly optimistic, given the discussion of what has been happening in Austin, that they will come forward with a resolution that will be in Blinn's best interest, more than the amount that we have shown here.
Because that's the thing, just thinking about it is that the reserves, I know they're there, but I feel like we keep having, over time, we haven't had to dip because we had HERF funds, but it's the last 3 years. So that's the one thing that's kind of, I don't know, looming.
Yeah, you have, so let me put that into some perspective. You have $15 million for a capital reserve. So for here, we're talking about potentially somewhere around 3.5 of that $15 million that you would budget in there. And we have had some discussions with the staff that as Blinn moves forward in the future, it would behoove them to separate what is really the R&R, that general that I talked about, and put that in the operational budget, and the capital probably out of the reserve would be the way to go. So you have sufficient funds there to be able to do that. And then you have this other $20 million out there that hasn't been allocated for other activity. And so I think the immediate future, I'm not going to go far out, but in the immediate future, I think it's a pretty good opportunity for Blinn. I think it's fairly safe. Let me just put it that way. I don't think you're taking as much risk at this juncture. You may get here next year and say, okay, things went south. We're not even close to what we had thought they would do, and then you could reconsider that. But at this point, I think you're in a position to be able to move in that direction if you want to. It's fairly safe.
Trustee Wells.
Comment and just one consideration. For the past 5 years, we've tried to work diligently as a board to get into the range of compensation because the greatest asset that we have is our student and our staff. We probably have more pieces moving than we've ever had before. No longer have the HERF money. We have a master plan. We're considering possibly adding on another area. We need to see what House Bill is going to do. So with all those considerations, I think timing now is probably the best timing because going back to the genesis, our original intent was to make certain that everybody was honored in this process, those at the lower level as well as the higher level. So I just want to keep that in mind, that was the original conversation, that was the original intent. And I think that based upon the great job that you all have done, that we're in a position to be able to do it now, but as we go forward in the future with some of the things that we're projecting, we need to be real sensitive because you can run through $100 million real quickly if you don't watch it. So those are my observations.
So what's your perspective then? How are you feeling about it?
Actually, I'm leaning toward the third option because I think that particularly in the workforce that we're in right now, people are having a very difficult time retaining people. And we've done some things in the past to be able to try to do some things, particularly at those minimal levels. And one of the biggest expenses companies have is employee turnover. And I know that, again, we talked about that in session and that you're not always comparing apples with apples because some people don't want to leave and go to big city and that kind of stuff. But I think that if we're number one in all these things we're talking about, the best place to work and nursing and that kind of stuff, we need to be able to honor the people who make that happen at every level.
Dennis, you get some thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an advocate of the 654 because I think we have such a disparity between the ones at the low level and ones at the high level. I'll go back to what Douglas keeps saying, that the folks at the higher level, that's just kind of discretionary income. It's our the ones at the low level, the 6% to me that run the college, to get the college where they are. It's the faculty members, it's the staff members. So that's where I'm an advocate of. I do have some questions for you, Mr. Cervantes, concerning that revenue page. The tuition and fees, you've got a $2 million increase. Are you, and I know we raised tuition and fees, are we assuming it's going to be the same level of tuition enrollment? Is that what that's based on, or is that any kind of enrollment increase? And before you answer, I want to
go ahead.
ask really basically the same question about the auxiliary, the housing. Are you same fill rates and that kind of stuff?
Thank you, Dr. Carlson. That's some very good questions. So for tuition and fees is assuming no increase in the enrollment.
That's what I figured.
So it's fairly conservative,
Yeah.
and it's all based on the increase of the rates that the board approved. Auxiliaries is a little bit different. I would say it's about the same optimism that we had for this current budget. So it's probably conservative is what I would say. The fill rate that we are budgeting is much smaller than what we have in previous years. Much smaller. I mean, in previous years, when things were going great, we were budgeting somewhere a little bit over 90% of occupancy, and we're down to 80% now of our, and that's for the annual. So if we turn out that if we can get and spring historically drops too, so that's a pretty good number for us. It's fairly conservative, I'd say.
Well, that's where I was hoping you would answer it that way. And so I think we can feel pretty comfortable then with those line items. You know, as Schubert was saying, it sounds like the House bill, it's gonna be positive in our direction. So I'm not as concerned about that. Probably the one line item I'm more worried about, I guess, would be the interest. We have a pretty big increase. Now, I know our interest has gone up, and who knows what the feds are going to do, but that's the one I would think would have the biggest question mark. I don't think they're going to push the interest rates lower. I think they're actually going to go up, but if they did, that would be one area that we may want to earmark. But I'm for the 654 split. So.
Chief, did you?
I would just make a comment regarding what Mrs. Ehlert said earlier, though, too, regarding our cash or our financial situation is that, as Mr. Cervantes pointed out early, San Jacinto and Lone Star, they got huge tax revenues. We have very minimal tax revenues, and we've had our ability to do the improvements and salary things that we've done in the last few years is because we have accumulated or have had cash available that we've done through the ingenuity and the work of our staff and the so forth. And I question, I mean, we can't afford to lose a lot of that. I mean, we need to have some capital in the bank to make it where if we need to do a further major expansion or major work, renovation or replacement more than what we've done more than anything, I guess you'd say. But we need to have a good, strong balance sheet, and we can't afford to sacrifice that. And so you know, very much we need to be aware of that on whatever we do. And it's what we can do with our funds that we have coming in, which is through our student fees and revenue and state funding. And so we need to, those are most people have 3 legs on, we got 2, you know, basically is what it amounts to. So I just bring that up as part of the discussion and what we do.
Trustee Benke?
I do have a question. I'm very interested in the base salary moving from 45 to 52. I don't know if a single parent family could make it on 45. I don't want to leave that one totally off when we're looking at the other things as well. Because when we take 654 or the 54, that's not including that, if I'm reading it correctly.
No, so it is. It's shifted a little bit. I think you and I had this discussion at the last one.
Okay.
And obviously I didn't explain it as well. So the original cost to us, just taking the folks that were below 52,000 and moving them up to 52,000, that was going to add considerably more, 300,000. Yeah. And what we realized is the individuals that are closer to the 52,000 now wouldn't benefit by just going a few dollars up. They
Right.
would benefit by going into the percentage, and they're calculated in the percentage increase as opposed to, so you still have the faculty-based pay for those people that are at a lower level, 45 and significantly below the 52. But those that would earn more in salary by going with the percentage are calculated into that percentage.
So it doesn't technically move the base pay, but it does help those.
It does move the base pay, but
Okay.
for less of them, it's less beneficial for about half of them.
Okay.
Half of them would be benefit more from a salary perspective by receiving the percentage increase.
Mr. Cervantes, this is Marie. Also, when you look at that 333,000, what happens is if someone, for example, gets a 6% or gets a 5% increase, it then decreases that 333,000 because you're going to, that's already built in, that 5% or that 6%, whatever the board chooses to do, or the 4%, that's already built in. So it reduces the difference between the 45,000 and the 52,000. So incrementally, it takes that 333,000 down somewhat based on what that percentage would look like.
We did look at it at the budget meeting, but I was still in my mind making them two separate options as they are presented as 5 different options. So I apologize.
But that's included in the option.
It is, so half of them are still included in the base pay. They will take the advantage of moving from 45 or somewhere below 52. There's a break-even point in there, I would imagine. And so those that are below that break-even point would benefit by going up to the 52, and those that are above the 52 are above the break-even point would benefit by taking a percentage. That'll give them a salary grade in 52,000.
But
which
we would
helps
want
them.
to do that, right? I mean, everybody wants to raise that minimum salary to the. I mean, I would think you could figure.
That one final question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wells.
Can you elaborate on the scholarship, $450 at every level?
Say that one more time.
I thought you mentioned an increase in scholarships
right.
at $450 at every level.
We had a number of scholarships that we brought to the board, requests that had been brought to the administration to increase scholarships in certain areas. And primarily what they were doing, Reverend Wells, is they were essentially saying there are scholarships that are being offered at some team sports and others were not receiving them. They would get tuition and fees, whereas some of them would get everything. They would get housing and they would get board. So we were trying to, the request that came from athletics was, for the most part, trying to make those equitable for those folks that were not receiving some of these other scholarships, to make them match some of the other ones that we had, including, I said athletics, but it also included ag. And that total came up to 460,000. So we have incorporated all of those in each of the options. So that will be approved if the board approves it in June.
Good discussion. My perspective is that I think we need to be very conservative, but I also know that, you know, the will of the board is to try to take care of the lower spectrum employees. That was very clear in many of our earlier meetings. You know, I could support the 654 for this year. I agree with you, Trustee Mosier, in that I don't think that's a tremendous route for us to go long-term. I would rather see us eventually get to, you know, the increase is the increase for employees, but I think that that's a good route this year. And then we can always evaluate what revenues look like next year and decide how next year's wages would be handled. So, any other questions?
That's the thing we've all discussed, is that all the faculty we want to keep all of you. I mean, that's the thing, because it's like, we know in this climate right now, it's hard to retain people at times and also get new staff if that comes up. So, I mean, that's why I think that 654 right now is probably, for me, that would be the option.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So we will, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, we will incorporate that option into the request or into our budget and give you much more detail of how how that would affect each of the areas that we would add that salary to. And then we will have that considered at the June meeting for the board to vote on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, we will now move on to the consent agenda. Item number 11 in the agenda. All items listed in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Trustees and will be enacted upon one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the trustees so request, in which event the item will be removed from the consent and considered in discussion and possible action. Trustees receive agenda materials in advance of the meeting to prepare for the business to be conducted. First item is approval of the minutes for the April 18th, 2023 regular meeting. And the second item is the acceptance of a donation. Now, Trustee Kettler would not vote on this consent agenda, correct?
Trustee Kettler can vote on 11A and B because they're not a personnel matter or a budgetary item.
Great, okay, very good. Well, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent
Trustee
agenda.
Wells? Trustee Aylert, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay, thank you so much. And we will now move into executive session in accordance with 551.071 and 551.072. I would prefer us not to take a break, so we will just go right into executive session as soon as everyone clears the room. It is 12:07.